My boyfriend refuses to get a job but expects me to pay rent. I, 27F, have been dating my boyfriend, Evan, 29M, for 3 years. We've lived together for about 2.5. On paper, we look like that couple who moved in together at the natural time. Things were good, we were spending every night together anyway, it just made sense. He had a job when we met. I remember the first time I saw him at a trivia night one of my coworkers dragged me to. He was the guy in the denim jacket who managed to be both smug and charming when he knew an answer about some obscure 80s band. He bought our table a round of drinks when we won, and somehow I left with his number scribbled on a napkin like it was a rom-com. He texted me that night, "You're the only person who beat me to the punchline." I still have the screenshot. I hate that I still have the screenshot. I work full-time in healthcare admin, read spreadsheets and people yelling on the phone, and lately I've been picking up weekend shifts, bartending, to help with the cost of, existing. He used to work in marketing for a small local company and talked a lot about big plans and giving himself 6 months to build a portfolio and quit. He's one of those big dreamers who wants to start his own thing. First it was a podcast, then a YouTube channel, then an e-commerce brand. The thing is, when we met, those dreams were balanced by actual tangible effort. He got up early, he did his job, he met deadlines, he ironed his shirts, he packed lunches, he sent me pictures of sunrises from the bus like a weirdo. I liked that even his dreams had bullet points. Then, life happened. He got laid off during a restructuring not long after we moved in, and we agreed together that he'd take some time to figure out the next step. I said things like, "We'll be okay," and "You've got so much to offer," and "This is just a season." I meant it too. I grew up with a single mom who made every dollar do gymnastics. The idea of supporting someone you love didn't feel scary, it felt loyal. It felt right. Somewhere between then and now, the season turned into a landscape I don't recognize. It's been almost 2 years since he last had a job. 2 birthdays, 2 Christmases, 2 summers of me saying, "Hey, did you hear back from that place?" And him saying, "Not yet, but I've got a lead." 2 tax seasons where I stared at my W-2s and his nothing. 2 years of my card at the grocery store, my name on the utilities, my stomach doing that ugly flip when the rent hits and the math doesn't math. I wouldn't call this a wake-up call post because, honestly, the alarms have been going off for a while and I've been hitting snooze with my whole body. There's just this point where the snooze button breaks, where you're standing in your kitchen, staring at a sack of envelopes and your own reflection in the microwave door, and you realize you don't recognize the person who's making excuses for a grown man. I'm not trying to be cruel, I'm trying to be honest. I love him, or I love the version of him I met. Maybe both truths live in my chest, fighting it out. He's not a monster. He cooks sometimes. He kisses me on the forehead while I'm hunched over my laptop paying bills, which makes me want to cry for reasons I can't articulate. He says thank you when I Venmo the landlord. He tells me he's going to crush it next month. He cuddles the cat like he's auditioning for a role as a sensitive boyfriend. He also sleeps until 11 most days and stays up gaming until 2 a.m. with a group of people I've never met who call him by a screen name that sounds like a deodorant brand. If you asked me 6 months ago how I felt, I would have lowered my voice and said, stressed but hopeful. If you ask me today, I want to say tired. So tired. Tired in the kind of way where your bones ache and you start fantasizing about a quiet studio apartment with a futon you bought by yourself. Tired in the way where you walk into your own home and feel like a provider first and a partner. Tired in the way where even the good moments feel like borrowed money. I'm writing this because the line between help and enabling is blurrier than I thought, and I genuinely don't know which side I'm on. I'm also writing it because I can hear the chorus of "Girl, leave" warming up already, and either I need that tough love or I need someone to hold my hand while I figure out if I'm the one being unfair. Maybe both, maybe neither. I don't know. Anyway, This is just the introduction. There's a lot of context, and I want to lay it all out clearly because I've done that thing where you condense your life into a few dramatic sentences and then commenters have to play detective with missing puzzle pieces. I don't want that. I want to be specific, even if it makes me look naive or pathetic or cruel, or whatever adjective I've been calling myself in the bathroom mirror. I'll get into the backstory, the shift, the I can't believe this is my life moments, the fight with his mom, yes, that happened, and the part where I checked our bank account at 3:17 a.m. and had a very quiet meltdown so I wouldn't wake him. But for now, I'm 27F. He's 29M. We share an apartment, a cat, and a history that feels heavier than it should. He hasn't worked in almost 2 years. I've been covering rent, bills, and groceries. He says he's looking, but the proof is a lot of open tabs and not a lot of outcomes. I feel like the bad guy for wanting more. I feel like his mom for needing to ask. I feel like a fool for writing this. And still, some small part of me is hoping that typing it out is the first step towards not feeling like I'm drowning. I'll share the backstory next because if you're anything like me, you want to know. Was it always like this? Short answer, no. Did I miss red flags? Probably. Am I being dramatic? God, I hope so. When I tell this story out loud, which is rare because it feels like admitting I'm failing at being an adult, the first question is always, was he always like this? And that's the part that stings because no, he wasn't. When I met Evan, he was the guy who had ambition oozing out of his pores, not in an arrogant finance bro way, but in this kind of scrappy, creative way that made you believe in him. He had a 9-to-5 job in marketing for this little local company, and he always talked about how he wanted to start his own business. At first it was cute. He'd stay up late sketching out logos or showing me mock-ups of fake products he wanted to launch. It didn't feel like pipe dreams, it felt like goals. He had this glint in his eye when he talked about the future, like he could see it and he was just waiting for the rest of us to catch up.
I loved that about him. I loved that he wasn't complacent. I grew up in a house where stability was the holy grail. My mom worked 2 jobs to keep the lights on, and we never talked about dreams, just survival. So meeting someone who dared to want more felt intoxicating. I thought, wow, here's someone who won't settle, who will drag me into a brighter, bigger life than I ever thought possible. When we started dating, he had his own apartment. Nothing fancy, but tidy. He'd cook me dinner and make it look effortless, like pasta with shrimp and garlic bread, candles, music in the background. I remember sitting on his secondhand couch thinking, this is what being a grown-up in love feels like. We'd split the bill when we went out, or he'd grab it one time and I'd grab it the next. It never felt uneven. When we decided to move in together, after about 6 months, it wasn't some big debate. We were already basically living together between his place and mine, so it just made sense. I was nervous, but he calmed me down by saying, "We'll be a team, everything 50-50." And for a while, it really was. Then COVID hit. His company downsized and his department was gutted. He got the call one Tuesday morning, and I remember the way he sat on the bed afterward, staring at his laptop like it had betrayed him. He was devastated. I was devastated for him. I told him it wasn't his fault, that layoffs happen to good people all the time, that he was talented and would bounce back. I meant it. The thing is, at first, he did try. He sent out resumes, he interviewed over Zoom, he made spreadsheets of places he wanted to apply. He told me he was hustling, and I believed him because I wanted to. When weeks turned into months, I told myself it was just the job market. Everyone was struggling, right? People were getting laid off left and right. We were in the middle of a pandemic. I thought the most loving thing I could do was to carry the weight for a while and give him the space to land on his feet. And for a little while, that was fine. I picked up extra shifts at work. I covered the rent when unemployment benefits took forever to kick in. I told myself this was temporary, that this is what couples do, weather storms together. I even kind of liked being the strong one, the provider, because it made me feel like I was undoing all the financial instability I grew up with. But here's the thing no one tells you. Storms don't always end. Sometimes they just become the new weather. Looking back, I realized there were small red flags I brushed off. He started sleeping later, he'd say he was working on applications, but I'd walk into the living room and see YouTube open. He talked a lot about building his brand, but there wasn't much evidence of it beyond half-finished Canva graphics. When I asked how I could help, he'd get defensive. I don't need you to micromanage me. I rationalized it because I loved him. Because when you love someone, you don't want to believe they're letting you down. You want to believe they're just struggling. That if you're patient, they'll get back to the version of themselves you fell in love with. Fast forward almost 2 years, and I feel like I'm living with a roommate who's allergic to responsibility. Except worse, because I can't even kick out a roommate without losing a piece of my heart in the process. But I'll get into the fights, the lies, and the part where his mom literally told me I should be grateful to support his son in the next section. That's where things really started unraveling. Okay, so here's where things start to get ugly. At first, like I said, I believed him. I wanted to believe him. He'd sit at the desk in our bedroom, open his laptop, and say, "I've got 3 applications to send today." I'd go off to work, clinging to that little bit of hope. Then I'd come home and see the same exact tabs open. Indeed, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, like literally still on the login page. Sometimes he'd even leave his email up, but the inbox would be empty. No drafts, no sent emails. The first time I asked about it, he brushed me off. "I didn't hit send yet. I'm tweaking my cover letter." Okay, fine. The second time, he snapped, "Do you not trust me? Why are you checking up on me?" I wasn't trying to be a detective, but it's hard to ignore when the evidence is staring you in the face. Then, one night, I was cleaning the kitchen and his phone buzzed on the counter. I wasn't snooping, I swear, but the notification popped up Discord. A friend saying, "You on tonight?" I glanced at the time and it was 1:07 a.m. He told me earlier he was finishing job applications. My stomach dropped. I knew then he'd been lying straight to my face. He wasn't applying, he was gaming. I confronted him the next morning. I said, "You told me you are working on applications, but you were on Discord all night. What's going on?" And instead of apologizing, he doubled down. He got angry. He told me, "Do you know how stressful it is to be unemployed? I need an outlet. I can't just spend 24/7 job hunting." I felt like I was losing my mind. Of course I knew stress. I was working 2 jobs to keep us afloat. I was the one doing mental gymnastics every time rent was due. But somehow in his head, he was the victim. Then came the first big blow up. Rent was due, and I asked him if he could at least cover part of it, anything, even $100. He said, "I don't have it." I said, "You haven't had it in months. What's the plan?" He just stared at me like I was speaking another language. Finally, he muttered, "If you loved me, you wouldn't make this about money." That sentence broke something in me. Because it wasn't about money. It was about respect, about partnership, about not feeling like I was carrying a grown man on my back while he played Call of Duty in the dark. But he framed it like I was greedy, shallow, unloving. I started to doubt myself. Was I being cold? Was I being a bad girlfriend? It spiraled from there. Groceries, me. Wi-Fi, me. Netflix, electric, water, all me. Even the damn cat food. I tried to set boundaries, told him he needed to show me proof of job applications, like actual email sent. He laughed in my face and said, "What are you, my boss?" I started noticing other things too. He stopped showering regularly. He wore the same sweatpants 3 days in a row. He'd sleep until noon, roll out of bed, pour cereal, and then sit down at his computer like it was his workstation. Except his work
was streaming YouTube or gaming until I got home. When I walked in the door, he'd quickly switch tabs like a teenager caught watching 18+ video. The worst part? He started gaslighting me about it. I'd point out that I was paying everything, and he'd go, "It's not like I asked you to, you chose to." Like what? Rent isn't optional. Utilities aren't optional. It's not a choice when the alternative is homelessness. And then, oh God, the lies. I found out he was telling his mom and his friends that he was consulting, as in he had some mysterious freelance gig that apparently kept him busy. When I asked him about it, he shrugged and said, "Nah, it's just easier than explaining." Except he wasn't consulting. He wasn't doing anything. That's when I realized this wasn't just a rough patch. This was a pattern, a way of life. And the thing about patterns is they don't change unless someone wants them to. If the conflict was like cracks forming in the walls, the escalation was the whole ceiling caving in. After that first blow up about rent, things didn't get better, they got louder. I'd come home from a 10-hour shift and see him sitting there, headset on, yelling at his online friends while I dropped my bag and went straight to the kitchen to figure out dinner. And when I'd say something as small as, "Hey, can you take out the trash?" he'd roll his eyes and say, "Can I finish this game first?" By the time the game was over, he'd forget. The resentment in me started stacking up like dirty dishes. One night, I snapped. I came home from bartending around 2 a.m., exhausted, smelling like vodka and limes, my feet screaming in cheap shoes. He was sprawling the couch, snoring, an empty pizza box on the coffee table. I just stood there in the doorway looking at him, and something in me cracked open. I shook him awake and blurted out, "Do you even care about us, about me, about anything?" He blinked at me, groggy, and mumbled, "You're overreacting." Overreacting. That word might as well have been gasoline on a fire. I started crying, yelling, ugly, messy, chest-heaving yelling about how I was drowning while he was floating, how I was tired of being his bank account, his maid, his therapist, his excuse, how I didn't recognize him anymore. Instead of apologizing, he accused me of being money-obsessed. He said, "All you care about is rent, bills, money, money, money. What happened to loving me for me?" That line gutted me, because I do love him for him, or at least I loved who he used to be. But love doesn't keep the lights on. Love doesn't buy groceries. Love doesn't pay the Wi-Fi bill that he uses to play League of Legends all night. The next escalation? His mom. Oh God, his mom. After one of our fights, he apparently called her to vent. A few days later, she called me. At first, I thought she was checking in on us, but nope. She launched into this whole speech about how Evan was just figuring things out, and how men need time to find their path. She literally said, "You should be grateful you get to support him right now. That's what a real partner does." I almost dropped the phone. Grateful? Grateful that I'm working myself into an early grave while her 29-year-old son sits at home in sweatpants, figuring things out? I tried to explain that I was exhausted, that I couldn't carry the financial and emotional weight forever. She cut me off and said, "If you can't handle that, maybe you're not the right woman for him." I wanted to scream. Instead, I just said, "Maybe you're right," and hung up. After that, things between me and Evan got colder. He started weaponizing his mom's words against me, like, "Even my mom says you don't support me." Like, yeah, your mom who still does your laundry when we visit, the same mom who treats you like you're 15 instead of almost 30, of course she thinks I should coddle you. My friends noticed too. One night, I vented to my best friend over wine, and she straight up said, "He's using you." I got defensive. "No, he's just struggling." She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Struggling is when someone tries and fails. He's not trying, he's choosing this." That sentence still echoes in my head. The final straw, at least the most recent one, was rent again. I asked him, calmly, I swear, to contribute something, even $50. He snapped, "You're selfish. You don't care about how hard this is for me." Selfish? Me? The person paying every bill, every grocery trip, every utility. The person who hasn't bought herself new shoes in a year because she's covering cat food and electricity and rent for 2. We didn't talk for 2 days after that fight. Just silence. Him sulking in the bedroom, me tiptoeing around the apartment, both of us pretending we weren't suffocating. And that's where I'm at now. Burned out, resentful, questioning everything. Because I don't know if this is salvageable anymore, or if I'm just clinging to a memory of the guy he used to be. So here I am, staring at the screen, trying to put all of this into words, and the truth is, I don't even know who I am in this relationship anymore. I feel like I've split into 2 people. One version of me is the practical adult, the one who's looking at the bills and thinking, this is unsustainable. You're 27 years old, you're working yourself into the ground, and you're tied to a man who contributes nothing. That version of me is screaming, leave, pack up, run.
But then there's the other version of me, the one who remembers the guy I fell in love with, the guy who used to iron his shirts and pack lunches, who used to send me corny texts in the middle of the day just to make me laugh. That version whispers, what if he comes back? What if this is just a phase? What if leaving now means giving up right before he figures it out? And between those 2 voices is me, exhausted and guilty. Because it's not as simple as just walking away. We share a lease. We share a cat. We share 3 years of memories, inside jokes, holidays, all the little threads that make a life together. Untangling all of that feels impossible. And then there's the guilt, the crushing, constant guilt. He's said things like, if you leave me, I'll have nowhere to go. And it's true. His mom lives 2 hours away in a tiny house, and he's burned bridges with most of his friends. So if I walk, I'm not just ending a relationship, I'm basically making him homeless. I replay that thought in my head over and over. How could you do that to someone you love? But then I think, isn't he already doing that to me? Isn't he making me carry everything while he does nothing? Isn't he already putting me in a position where I'm drowning while he floats? And here's the part that makes me feel like a monster. Sometimes I fantasize about living alone, about walking into a quiet, clean apartment that I pay for, just me, about opening the fridge and knowing every single thing inside it was bought with my own money, about not having to beg a grown man to take out the trash, about not having to feel resentment simmering in my chest every time I look at him. And yet, I stay. I stay because of love, or fear, or habit, or maybe all 3. I stay because breaking up feels like admitting I wasted 3 years of my life. I stay because some part of me still believes in him, even when the evidence is screaming that he doesn't believe in himself. I've tried ultimatums, I've tried calm conversations, I've tried yelling, I've tried crying. Nothing works, nothing changes. It's like shouting into the void. He nods, he says he'll do better, and then the next day it's back to the same cycle. Video games, naps, empty promises. And I don't know how much longer I can keep living like this. I don't know how much longer I can keep covering for him, financially, emotionally, mentally. I feel like I'm breaking. So that's the dilemma. I love him, but I also hate the person he's become. I want to help him, but I also don't want to spend my 20s playing mommy to a man who won't grow up. I feel guilty for even thinking about leaving, but I also feel guilty for staying and letting myself be drained like this. And that's why I'm here, typing all of this out to strangers on the internet, because I need perspective. I need someone to tell me if I'm crazy, or selfish, or blind. So here's where I'm stuck. I don't know if I'm clinging to a sinking ship out of love or out of fear. I don't know if I'm being compassionate or if I'm just enabling. I don't know if leaving him would make me a monster or if staying with him is slowly turning me into one. I think about the future and it terrifies me. What happens if I stay and nothing changes? Am I going to be 30, 35, 40, still covering the bills while he's sitting in the dark with a controller in his hand, telling me he's figuring it out? Am I going to waste my best years waiting for a version of him that doesn't exist anymore? But then the guilt hits. The love hits. The memory of him before all this hits. And I wonder if maybe I'm abandoning him when he needs me most. What if leaving is the thing that finally breaks him? What if I'm overreacting and everyone else can see it but me? I haven't told my family about the full extent of this because I know what they'd say. Leave. My friends have already started hinting at it. Even my boss noticed I look exhausted and asked if everything was okay at home. And still, here I am, hesitating. I don't know if it's love or codependency or fear of starting over. Maybe all three. So Reddit, I need to know. Am I wrong for feeling resentful? Am I a terrible partner for wanting more than this? Should I give him one last chance to turn things around, or should I finally admit that I've been carrying dead weight and let go? I feel like I already know the answer, but I'm too scared to say it out loud. What would you do if you were me?